What's going on, guys? It's Fight Season MMA, and today I want to make a video talking about how Dricus Du Plessis can become the UFC's greatest middleweight ever. You know, Dricus Du Plessis is on a path right now. He's got his first title defense. He's fighting Sean Strickland in February in Sydney, Australia. A fight that we've always wanted to see ever since the first one, when Dricus won by narrow decision. He went out there, finished on Adesanya, the first person to ever go out there and do that. And genuinely, I'm so excited to see this man continue to grow his UFC career. But I want to kind of talk about the illustrious possibility of Dricus Du Plessis' career going forward. He's only got to really beat Israel Adesanya and Anderson Silva as the greatest UFC middleweights of all time. And I really only think he's got to beat one of those guys, and I'll kind of go into that in this video. But if you guys enjoy the UFC content, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I just started a TikTok page as well, posting all the shorts over there. If you guys could go over there and support, it's at Fight Season MMA on TikTok. That would be absolutely amazing if you guys could go do that. And while you guys are over there, please drop a like on these videos, a like on the TikTok videos, just so you guys can help me continue to put out daily MMA content every single day for you guys, and kind of bring you guys everything that you want within the organization and get you guys the soonest news as it comes out. But in this video, let's talk about Dricus Du Plessis' pathway to becoming the UFC middleweight GOAT, and of why I actually think it's easier than a lot of people think, and of how Dricus Du Plessis has all the tools to be able to get that done. Okay, so kind of talking about Dricus Du Plessis' GOAT pathway, I look at the two fighters who are above him, that being really Israel Adesanya and Anderson Silva. Now, yes, there's other fighters who are above him at this point. I would probably say Whitaker's still above him as like an all-time middleweight great, but I think with that one time, we'll eventually kind of have it, and Dricus will go out there and pass Whitaker. Even though he's been out there and beat him, I still think that Whitaker currently right now is a better fighter than Dricus in middleweight history. But looking at Dricus Du Plessis' future inside the UFC, only time is going to be something that helps him mature his career. And I look at the organization as a whole right now, and I think the middleweight division is more stacked than ever in a very long time, and a lot of hardcore fans would probably be able to say the same thing. Now, it doesn't have the name value as the Forrest Griffins, the Anderson Silvas, the Chris Weidmans back in the day, all those guys who used to be out there and genuinely have, you know, the massive middleweight implications and power in every single fight. But having still factors of Israel Adesanya, Robert Whitaker, Khamzat Chimaev now, Sean Strickland, the up-and-comers, Caio Borralho, Nasruddin Imavov, all these different type of guys, I think the middleweight division is deeper than ever. And you have probably 8 or 10 guys who should be in the top 5, but obviously that's not how the math works. But I look at these fighters and I see that if Dricus Du Plessis can keep beating these guys, that is only going to help his career in case throughout the entire organization. And the only two fighters that he's got to go past, and I think he's already ahead of Anderson Silva, and I'll tell you why. Dricus Du Plessis needs to pass Israel Adesanya and Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva, yes, has 10 title defenses in the UFC middleweight division. The only thing I look at is Anderson Silva tested positive for PEDs. I do not believe you can be a GOAT inside the organization if you test positive for PEDs at any point in your career. That's why I consider GSP to be the UFC GOAT over someone like Jon Jones, even though I can acknowledge that I think Jon Jones had a better career, even though he tested positive, if that makes a little bit of sense. I don't want to make it sound like I don't think that these fighters talking about how they can't beat the GOAT don't, you know, have their respective, just absolute, of how they're amazing. Jon Jones is one of the best fighters inside UFC history, as well as Anderson Silva, but I don't think you could be called the GOAT of an organization, considering if you do take performance-enhancing drugs during that time. So I think that already rules out Anderson Silva from this middleweight title picture, and that leaves Israel Adesanya. Now, Adesanya has had a buttload of title defenses. He won the interim title against Kelvin Gastelum. He then unified the belt with Robert Whitaker, defeated Yoel Romero, beat Paulo Costa, went up to challenge Jan Blachowicz, then came down to fight Marvin Vettori, beat Whitaker a second time, beat Jared Cannonier, and then lost to Alex Pereira, beat Pereira again, lost to Strickland, yada, yada, yada. But Israel Adesanya has had a very illustrious career. And I look at those wins, and I don't think the quality of opponents that Israel Adesanya faced during his time is the same as the quality of opponents Dricus Du Plessis is facing now. I think that someone like Sean Strickland beat Adesanya at UFC 293. That's still prime Adesanya that we think is out there. Adesanya pretty much beat Pereira all of UFC 281. Pereira caught him in the 5th round, and questionably an early stoppage. I didn't think it was. I did think Mark Goddard made the correct decision in being able to protect Adesanya from himself and not having some serious damage being done. I know all fans want to see the fight go longer, considering that Izzy's a champion and whatnot, but look at that fight. I also look at the fight with Alex Pereira at UFC 287. Izzy Even though I do think Pereira, that was not the Pereira that could take a shot, still an incredibly impressive performance against his longtime rival, being being a person who, was 0-3 against Pereira to ultimately get the win in the UFC, even though his two previous losses in kickboxing and one in the UFC as well. Then he went to go fight Sean Strickland. He was like a minus 600 favorite in this fight, and he ultimately got dog walked by Strickland. And I look at that, and I'm just saying that I think that shows more about who Sean Strickland is as a fighter rather than Israel Adesanya. He then came back to fight Dricus Du Plessis. He looked really good in that fight, to be honest. I think that shows more about Dricus Du Plessis as a fighter rather than Israel Adesanya. I look at these different things, and I don't think that Adesanya's title reign had the level of competition that Dricus Du Plessis' title reign is going to have. Look at Sean Strickland the first time. Great fight, Strickland's first defense after coming off that incredible win over Adesanya. Dricus won, very close decision. Dricus' next fight beat Adesanya, title or guy we're talking about now that he has to surpass, went out there and beat him. He's gonna fight Strickland again, the rightful number one contender, whether you like to admit it or not, coming off one win against Paulo Costa, rightful contender. Then you got Khamzat Chimaev. You then have Robert Whittaker, who is another guy that Dricus has beat, but is one of the most prominent staples in the middleweight division. You got the up-and-coming prospects. Nasruddin Imavov is actually fighting Adesanya coming up here at the main event of UFC Saudi Arabia, and that is a fight that I think is pretty favorable to Imavov because he is such a good, well-rounded fighter. Great striker, also has great jiu-jitsu as well. Look at Caio Borralho. The Fighting Nerds is probably the best camp in the entire organization right now. When you have names like Carlos Prates, Caio Borralho, Mauricio Rufy, Jean Silva coming out of that fight camp, all went 11-0 this year and 9 knockouts is absolutely crazy in my opinion. So I think the middleweight division is absolutely stacked now. I think the only thing that Dricus needs to do is continue working on himself and keep stacking up these wins. That's the only way that you can really become the GOAT. Yes, a lot of people can become the GOAT of highlight finishes and this and that, but ultimately, if he can keep going out there and winning these wars with these different individuals, I think it is an absolute fast track for Dricus Du Plessis to become the UFC's middleweight GOAT. Now, I look at the fighters that he's beat. Like I said, I kind of talked about Sean Strickland, but Sean Strickland is one of those fighters that it's going to be super hard to go out there and finish. He is such an awkward style, and I compare him to Wonderboy in a way, to where I think Wonderboy is kind of one-dimensional. He is a great kickboxer, but he has such a difficult style to go up there and beat that not a lot of people are going to go out there and finish. That's why Joaquin Buckley finishing him was so impressive, and that's why Alex Pereira finishing Sean Strickland is so impressive, and that's why I think Dricus Du Plessis winning that fight was rightfully so, but it's just so hard to go out there and outclass and outpoint Strickland in a lot of different categories. He's super resilient, super tight in his defense, super disciplined, and a really good fighter out there, but I look at Dricus Du Plessis' future inside the organization. I think he's going to go out there and beat Strickland a second time. I think he has the ability to go give Khamzat Chimaev his first ever UFC loss, and I think that that's going to be the fight, the rightful fight for the next UFC title challenger, unless Strickland beats Du Plessis, and I think that there could possibly be a rematch in there for the third bout between those two. But I look and I see that the UFC middleweight division is right now stacked. I look at Anderson Silva and see that he tested positive for PEDs back in the day, and I look at Israel Adesanya as the clear-cut UFC middleweight GOAT. Whether you like to admit it or not, his middleweight career wasn't as illustrious as Silva's, but definitely the PED positive test kind of discredits all of that, because no matter if you do it a long time, no matter if you do it for a short time, taking performance enhancing drugs 100%, as the name implies, changes your performance for your entire career. And I think a lot of people overlook that taking a performance enhancing drug one time won't do anything for the later part of your career, but genuinely it will help you every single time, and for a very long time it will never revert you back to your original clean self. And I look at that and I see Dricus Du Plessis already has a win over Israel Adesanya. Adesanya is still a higher on the GOAT leaderboard than Dricus just due to the sheer number of title defenses. But you have Dricus beat Strickland. You have Dricus beat Khamzat. You have Dricus beat someone like Nasruddin Imavov or Caio Borralho. You're not telling me that that's better than Israel Adesanya, considering that I think the competition has been better. I think that Dricus has already beat Adesanya. He's beat Strickland twice. He would have given Khamzat, one of the most dominant grapplers in UFC history, his first loss. I just see all this different type of stuff going together, and I just look at Dricus Du Plessis' entire career, and I think that he's an absolutely special one. He's such a good, well-rounded fighter. He's such an incredibly intelligent fighter, and he is someone who can go out there and do anything he really needs to go out and win these different fights. I see Dricus as the best middleweight fighter right now on the planet, and I don't think it's really close in some aspects. He might have this goofy striking style, might not look like he can do anything in there, but he finds a way to win. And that's easily the most important thing. I will never bet against Dricus no matter what ever again. I bet against him against Strickland. I bet with him against Adesanya, and both of those have gone right. And really, I truly think that Dricus Du Plessis is so good, so talented, and has everything in the gas tank to go out there and become the UFC's middleweight GOAT. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA, and please let me know what you think down below in the comment section about this video talking about Dricus Du Plessis one day becoming the UFC middleweight GOAT. I do think it's imminent. I do think it's going to come very soon, possibly in the next 2 or 3 years. Dricus just has to keep fighting, getting 2 or 3 title defenses a year, especially if he's fighting the level of competition of Khamzat Chimaev's, the Sean Stricklands, the Caio Borralhos, and Nasruddin Imavovs, all those different type of guys. I do think that is going to add an added implemented element into Dricus Du Plessis' legacy. He is that good. He is so well-rounded, great striker, great grappler, great finishing ability, incredibly smart, and I think that that's easily his best thing is his coaching team and his to change things on the fly. I think Dricus is an incredibly special fighter, and being able to watch him perform inside the UFC is something that I don't take for granted because he is that fun to watch. He is that good of a mixed martial artist, and he has so many different levels to his game that all the fans inside the UFC love to see. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you guys enjoyed the UFC content. And remember, I do have a TikTok now at Fight Season MMA. Go over there, support it, help it grow. Love to do big things over there as well. Kind of have multi-platforms. And while you're here, please leave a comment. Let me know what you think about this take. Let me know if there's any other videos you would like to see. And if you think Dricus Du Plessis can one day become the UFC middleweight GOAT. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will catch you guys very soon with more UFC content and news.